In the 8 years of 60 Minutes, no single piece has caused more continuing controversy than a film we showed a year ago. We called it Syria, Israel's Toughest Enemy. About a quarter of that film was devoted to Syria's Jewish community, and it was that segment that caused the uproar. For though we reported various restrictions imposed on Syria's Jews, that they cannot emigrate, that their identity cards must say that they are Jews, that they must get permission on paper when they travel inside Syria, we said, and this was the essential thrust of the piece, we said, it must be added that today life for Syria's Jews is better than it was in years past. It was that phrase, plus a comment from a Syrian Jew we interviewed who told us that the horror stories we had heard before coming to Syria were Zionist propaganda, that triggered the reaction from thousands of our viewers. They had heard a totally different story. They felt we had been had. And their consensus was summed up by the American Jewish Congress, which called our report inaccurate and distorted. We rebroadcast that report in June. We aired the criticisms of our film and gave some further background with the promise that we would go back and take another look. We have done that. We should state at the outset, as we did first time around, that Syria is a police state. And one economic fact should be put on the record. The average per capita income for all Syrians is less than $10 a week. We were permitted to talk to anyone we wanted, many of them in private. But during the filming, we were accompanied by a representative from the Ministry of Information. Here is our report. A visitor to Damascus comes upon Hared El Yahud, the Jewish quarter. Nobody calls it the ghetto. Beyond this mosque, close by the teeming, noisy bazaars of the old city. For almost 3,000 years, Jews have lived along these narrow streets. Before Israel's War of Independence, there were perhaps 35,000 Jews in Syria. Today, not more than 4,000, most of them in Damascus, living alongside Christians and Muslims, some of them Palestinian refugees who moved into the homes the fleeing Jews left behind in the late 40s. On the main street of the quarter, a cross-section of the crafts and professions, the jobs Jews here have traditionally held. The neighborhood kosher butcher, who numbers Muslims and Christians among his customers. The Jewish tailor, here making uniforms for the students at a Syrian school. A Jewish cobbler who wears a keffiyeh and looks more Arab than Jewish. His family has lived in the quarter for centuries. Nearby, the Nusayri Copper and Brass Emporium, which sells its wares not just to tourists, but also provides gifts for official government visitors. The goldsmith, one of the wealthiest merchants in the community. A lawyer, one of 3 Jewish lawyers practicing in Damascus. His partner is a Muslim, his client here a Bedouin. A pharmacist, one of 11 Jewish pharmacists with shops outside the quarter. The teacher is among the most beloved and influential figures in the community. His students get religious training and they learn Hebrew, though they are taught mainly in Arabic. The youngsters go to this private school by choice. The 2 private Jewish schools, elementary and primary, are sponsored mostly by the Alliance Française in Paris. There are a few Muslim and Christian students here too, though Jewish students are far and away the most numerous. Rabbi Hamra is the headmaster. He shares the school's administration with a Muslim appointed by the government. At the entrance to the quarter is the street of the Jewish doctors, 14 of them, and 5 dentists hang their shingles in Damascus. And their patients, mainly Muslim, come not just from the city, but from villages in the countryside many miles away. The busiest of the doctors, a member of the 7-man committee that leads the Jewish community, is Nissim Hazbani. He graduated from the University of Damascus Medical School 11 years ago. During his long office hours, he sees as many as 60 patients a day.
Because I am Jewish, they come to me more, because I am intelligent, you know?
You mean they like a good Jewish...
You are the same opinion.
They like a good Jewish doctor.
Yes, it is Jewish, it is intelligent.
Why do we in the United States hear all of these tales of horror about how the Syrian Jews are treated. That it's very difficult for a Jew to get a driver's license, for a Jew to get a telephone. We hear that there is a...
You see, I have a telephone, and I have a car, and I have a house. Anyone want a car, he can have. Anyone want a telephone, he can have. Anyone want to buy a house, he can have. And I am sure of that.
Why does the Jew have to have on his identification card, his carte d'identité, Musawi?
Now they don't want to put Musawi. Now.
Who said?
The government said, and I have one with no Musawi.
This is your identity card?
Yes.
When did you get it?
From about 2 weeks ago.
May I see?
Yes.
There is no Musawi here. How come? You are Jewish?
The government said to us, they want to give us the carte d'identité like all the Syrian people without religion. And this is for all the people.
Dr. Hasbani, if all the Jews of Syria were told they could leave the country, go to the United States or Mexico or Israel or wherever, how many of them would go?
I think that not more than 5% go to Israel. And perhaps if they want to live to United States, to Brazil, to other country, perhaps the number is 20 or 30%.
So about 1 out of 3 would leave. But before Assad, how many would have left?
Before Assad, I think that 90% leave.
What is the difference for a Jew between now and before Assad?
Before, we are not in freedom in this.
How?
There are some problems with us, but now from...
What were the problems?
Some problems like Musawi, like other things, you know. But now we are very well. When President Assad is on the head of the government, we are very well. All the community or Jewish community and also all the Syrian people in Syria.
Another Jewish doctor who escaped from Syria testified last summer before a congressional committee in Washington. He was a witness produced by the American Jewish Committee. He is practicing now in New York. When he talked to us, he asked to be photographed in shadow to protect his family back home. He described life in Damascus before he left 2 years ago.
If I want to compare it to the American life, it's unbelievable. You cannot believe that someone is kept like this. We cannot go from Damascus to other town without a license. All our relation is are with the secret police. If I want to get married, I must present a special application to the secret police. If I want to get a license to drive a car, if I want to buy a home, to buy a car, everything is related to the secret police, to go to...
He went on to tell us that when he was there, the secret police kept an eye on all Syrians, but that Jewish Syrians got a closer scrutiny.
The secret police.
Why did you leave?
With all my background...
Educational?
Educational and everything.
And some money, too?
In Syria, I was considered Jewish. And I was in jail 3 times.
For?
It wasn't for no reason, absolutely no reason.
You were in jail for how long?
It was for 3 days, but it was enough for me.
President Assad of Syria. Good man, bad man?
He is a good man. He is the best one, not only for Jews. He is, in general, for all the population.
That doctor had been trained here at the University of Damascus. The faculty remember him as a proficient student, but they resent the fact he took a skill Syria needs, an education the state paid for, and moved to the United States. At least they say he didn't go to Israel. There are 60,000 students here in one of 3 Syrian universities.
The Syrian authorities tell us that any student, Jewish or otherwise, can enter the university if he has finished high school. He can study law or engineering or medicine if his grades are high enough. Medicine requires the highest grades. Of the 35 Jewish students here at Damascus University, 13 are studying medicine.
This young man says he looks forward to making a good living in Damascus as a doctor. told us he feels no discrimination whatever in his classes from students or professors. And incidentally, this young Jewish student told us she is still the fiancée of the doctor who escaped. And thereby hangs a tale. This wedding underlines one of the chief complaints in the Jewish community, that there aren't enough young men to go around, so young women want to emigrate. There are said to be 200 Jewish girls over 26 facing spinsterhood because there's no one in Damascus for them to marry. This wedding united the daughter of the goldsmith to the son of the rabbi. 400 guests, among them Muslims and Christians, business associates, friends, and family. It was apparent that here was the Jewish upper crust. At the center of the quarter lives the Bukai family in a house they've inhabited for over half a century. Like so many old Damascus homes that are nondescript outside, hidden behind the walls are lovely courtyards with lemon trees and fountains, flowers, and the patina that comes with centuries. Mr. Bukai is a well-to-do retired businessman, 80 years old. He and his wife, who is 72, have 8 children. 3 are now in Israel, 1 in the United States. Of their 4 daughters in Damascus, 2 are still unmarried, now in their 30s or older. Their son Joseph came to visit them a year ago, the only visit by an American Jew who had left Syria. Joseph had fled when he was only 13. We talked to him in New York.
Is there some prosperity in the Jewish community?
Yes, there is a lot of way to become rich even.
For Jews?
For Jews.
And there are prosperous, are we talking about 2 or 3?
Yes, there are some prosperous, no, we are not talking about 2 or 3, we are talking in general, they are much more prosperous now than ever before.
This young Jew, a dentist, is prospering, though only 5 years ago he got into trouble with the Mukhabarat, the secret police. He spent 3 years in a Syrian prison from 1971 to 74. He had been caught trying to escape to Israel and sentenced to 15 years. But appeals were made by the Jewish community leaders. They saw President Assad personally, and eventually an amnesty was granted. Today, he has a thriving practice. Dr. Nissim Khatri is proof that there is no curfew for Jews in Syria. And he told us that all Jews can travel freely in the province of Damascus. We were also told that a call to the local police station is sufficient notification now for Jews to travel throughout Syria. We photographed Dr. Khatri and his new bride after midnight at one of Damascus' nightclubs. At a nearby table sat a deputy prime minister. The man said to be responsible for making life easier for Syria's Jews in recent years is President Hafez al-Assad. I put to him the Jews' chief complaint, that they cannot emigrate permanently from Syria. It is true that a handful of them, and non-Jewish Syrians, can visit Europe, Canada, the United States on business, for medical attention, or even on vacation if they leave a cash bond behind to guarantee their return. But I pointed out 204 Syrians have emigrated permanently to the United States within the past year, but not one Syrian Jew has been allowed to do so.
It is true that the Syrian constitution has guaranteed freedom for all citizens and has given equal rights and duties for all. But the Syrian Jews are not allowed to leave Syria, as this probably involves immigration to Israel. We say that we may allow them to immigrate to the United States if there is a guarantee from the United States that they would not leave the United States for Israel. How could anyone imagine that we can supply Israel with human resources while we are in a state of war?
Do you worry about the loyalty of your Jewish citizens here?
No. I think that the Syrian Jews love their country and they are satisfied with their way of life. The instructions to our ministers is to treat Jews like all other Syrian citizens. If there are individual cases, they will be treated as would similar cases of non-Jews. But this does not change the general rule, which is Jews are citizens of this country.
You invite Jewish former Syrians to come back and visit their families? Or American Jews to come here, go to the Jewish quarter, be with their friends, relatives, perfect safety, and no reprisals against Syrian Jews who may have either emigrated in the old days or escaped recently?
We welcome them anytime, and they will be in complete safety.
And can go and visit in freedom?
Anytime, anywhere.
Anytime, anywhere. But Jews are Jews, and Israel's guns are only 40 miles away. Most governments, even our own, as with the Japanese in World War II, would consider these people potentially dangerous to the national security. Apparently, President Assad does not, though they are watched more carefully than the others. They are also easier to watch, for they are only 1/20th of 1% of Syria's 7.5 million citizens.
So where do we wind up? A Syrian friend said to us, life for Jews here is no paradise. And then he quickly added, but it's not much better for us. And that's about it. Syria is a poor country by our standards, difficult, totalitarian, and for Jews it is more difficult than for the others. Why? Most here would point to Israel as the reason.
But it is getting better under President Assad, for all Syrians, and for Syrian Jews among them. To deny that is to deny what we have seen.